Thank you for logging on to the Pawcast for the week of Monday, September 3rd through Friday the 7th. Hello, I'm Mr. Andrews.
And I'm Miss Pegram.
And here's what's happening on our team this week.
All right, hello again, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the second Pawcast. Next week in ELA, we'll continue to work on our routines and get those established. You guys have been doing a fantastic job. So make sure that you keep that up and we really keep that progress going. Also, we got to start our class novel Friday. Make sure you tell your parents about it. My teacher is an alien. We'll really get to dig into that next week and get that going. And a lot of interesting stuff is going to unfold. So be looking out for that. Thirdly is the student ERLA. Now, basically what that is, I'm going to be classifying students in their reading levels. Not every student will be assigned next week. I'm just going to start it. And it's a very long process because I have a meeting with each student and find out where they're at as far as comprehension and reading fluency and things like that. And we can always improve on that. And that's where our 30 minutes of reading every night comes in. So definitely make sure that you are doing that, guys. And we will be starting that next week. Oh, and lastly, we are going to talk about what it looks like to read like a detective. And what are some things that we can do to read like a detective. So, really fun stuff coming up next week. I'm excited. You guys, I know you're excited. So make sure that you are here and don't miss any of the fun.
During the math portion of our school week, Tuesday will be football day. So let me explain real quick what football day is going to be. If you have a favorite team, say high school, the Northern Nighthawks, or a college team, or if you follow professional football and you have their colors, or if you have a jersey or t-shirt, a hat that has your team on it, wear it on Tuesday. Don't forget, it's football day. We're going to be drafting our team that you're going to follow the wins and losses, and we'll graph that information, and the scores of each of your team's games. You don't have to be a football fan, know anything about football. I'll explain how easy this is going to be, but we're going to collect data about your team or the team that you draw on Tuesday. Now, if you don't get your favorite team on Tuesday, if you have a favorite, well, at least you can be wearing your favorite team's colors, jersey, or even a cap if you have a cap with your team on it. You can bet I'll be wearing the New York Football Jets on Tuesday. So football day is how we're going to lead off. We'll also be doing some review of place value relationships on Tuesday because we have a test on Wednesday of place value relationships. And what that's been based on is knowing that place values that are right beside of another will be 10 times as much as, 100 times as much as, even 1,000 times as much as or more if it's a larger place value. If it's a smaller place value, then it's 1/10 of, 1/100th of, or even 1,000th of a place value in its area, depending how far away you go. So place value relationships and the ability to multiply by 10, 100, 1,000, or divide by 10, 100, or 1,000, and to move those digits to the correct place value. That's what we're doing on Wednesday. It's just a culmination of everything since last Tuesday. Then we're going to begin talking about place value patterns on Thursday and on Friday of this week. In science this week, we're going to be continuing our physical and chemical changes unit. Now, we talked a lot about matter and the basic properties of matter this past week. We'll talk about density, solids, liquids, and gases, and even conductors this week during our science portion of the day. Parents, I want to make you aware of some things that went home with your child this past Friday. One of the things that went home was a survey that we've asked you to please take care of. Now, normally we give these out on our open house night, but we kind of felt bad that you were having to take home all of these other things in the envelope and send those back. So we waited till this long weekend. This one's called, as you can see, About My Child. There are some just story starters on your child that if you can address these kinds of things. If there's anything else that we didn't ask about or things that you can address, please feel free to do that. There is a front and a back to that. We've had parents in the past that have typed a letter, there just wasn't enough room, or maybe the spaces were a little bit too close. We respect that, but we would love for you to write us and tell us about your child and send that back as soon as possible. You're just going to give us the Cliff Notes version of something that might take us a month or 2 months to finally get a handle on, and you can solve it in just a few lines. So thank you for taking time to do that ahead of time. The other thing that I want to make you aware of is that your child got a planner. Now, we had a planner that was makeshift for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Parents, thank you so much for checking your child's planner each evening. We know not every night is a perfect night. If they were, then we'd be perfect people maybe, but we're not, and nights are not either. And so we know that activities are abound. We know that there's also going to be things that just happen that are just going to be a blitz on our plans on the evening. But one of the things we want you to get into a habit of, if at all possible, is to check your child's planner each night. Now, each morning when they come into the classroom at 7:20, they are beginning to write down everything that we're going to do that day. They write it in their planner, and their job is to come home that evening and find an adult that will listen to them. And the EQs are just kind of story starters. They get a chance to unload and say, oh, and this is what we did in math today. And let me show you how, and then that sort of leads into what their homework is. Let them have that opportunity to be able to share what it is they did during the math, what they learned during science, and to explain it again, pull it out, listen, and the same thing with reading and social studies. If your child has some difficulty remembering what they did during the math class, or what we did and can't explain during the science lesson, or what was talked about and considered and written about during ELA, that may be a red flag that goes up that says, we might need to get in touch with Mrs. Pegram or Mr. Andrews and find out why they're not teaching anything during math, science, or ELA. And we might get down to the bottom of maybe why something is not being brought home or being able to share. The sooner we can catch things like that, the better. So this is just one of those ways that we like to open up the communication door, keep those going, and make sure that we're all on the same page.
All right, it is riddle time. Are you guys ready? Listen closely. I start with E. I end with E. But I only have one letter. What am I?
Students, remember, you always have to bring in your answer on the first day that you return back to school after the weekend of the Pawcast. We always want our parents to sign the answer sheet as well. That lets us know that parents, you too, were watching the Pawcast this past weekend. Again, if there's anything that we can add, delete, anything constructive, we want to know about it with our Pawcast. And you can also put that on the answer sheet.
Thanks for tuning into the Pawcast. See you Tuesday.